Good evening, everyone. Another Tuesday evening. Good to be here. Good to be alive, even. Really good to see folks on this evening. Just waiting for my sound engineer to just give me a thumbs up on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm good to go. Or if anybody else is on YouTube, please just put a thumbs up or just say a quick hello, and I'll be on my way doing what I need to do for this evening. Let me just put that there. Brilliant. Okay. Oh, yeah. Good evening, Pepper. Yeah, good to see you this evening. Listen, I'm good to go. One person for me, that's a crowd for me, so I want to get going. So we're looking at betrayal, part of human existence. But before I get into all that, just say a huge welcome to, if you're listening live. I'm sure in a few minutes' time, I'll see somebody else on. I'll perhaps say a quick hello then. And if you're watching elsewhere later on in the week or catch up at some point, also that's a good welcome as well. And it might be good that if you are watching that you have some pen and paper just to write something down, some resources so you can do some work. Also, just to say that these sessions are going to be very, very short. Thank you, Sonia. Delroy is really fine. Thank you. Yeah, good evening, Norma. And yeah, saying hello to anyone who's watching, but you don't want to acknowledge, that's fine. Those of you who let me know you're watching, somebody today said to me, called me Doc, and I thought, what? I've never heard that from you before. And it caught me off guard. It caught me by surprise. And he says, yeah, it flashes up all the time on LinkedIn. So I don't know if he watches or not, but maybe he does and he doesn't. But anyway, not to worry. If you're watching this evening, you know who you are. I'm not going to call you out, but just say a huge welcome. Yeah. So these tips really they're just hints and tips really to help you along the way. If you need further work, please do not hesitate to go and see a therapist or a doctor or psychologist. Really, really important. Good evening, John. Good to see you on LinkedIn. It's back on. It's back working now. I did something during the week and everything just kind of showed up as normal. So brilliant. Good to see you this evening. So we're looking at betrayal. It's something that happens to all of us in varying degrees. So betrayal basically is when somebody you put your trust in violates that trust. And I'm going to go more into it. I might even do a whole session on betrayal and the brain. What betrayal does. For those of you who've been betrayed, you know the sting that it leaves in your life. And it can take you a while to get over. Anyway, good evening, Janet. So for those of you watching, please, if you want to a question, a comment, add something to just make this, put some more flesh on the bones, please do for this evening. So tonight I want to look at betrayal in relationships, but I want to look at other forms of betrayal. When we talk of betrayal, quite often we think of sexual infidelity. But betrayal is a lot bigger than that, a lot broader than that. So I just want to go through some this evening. Oh, yes, thank you, Jade. Really good to see you this evening. And anyone else who might be watching. So there's an article written by Michelle Amara. And what I do, I tend to do my research. I use some of people's work. I always reference them because to not do so is intellectual theft. Plagiarism, so I use their work, but then I build on it. There's nothing new under the sun, so I might say this person's work here, but if you look at what they've written to what I say, I use that as a template, and then I add my own kind of development on it. So these are some of the forms of betrayal which can be damaging in any form of relationships. I'm sure I'm going to be looking at betrayal in marriages, betrayal in workplaces, and the list goes on and on. So one of the things, of course, she says, and I'm not too sure if I agree with this fully, not showing up on time. Now that can be a cultural thing, or sometimes you might be involved in something really important. The person you're with. Good evening, Dave. Really good to see you this evening. You might be you're involved in something really important, and the person you're with, they continue to show up late all the time. It's not a one-off. They continue to show up late. Now she sees this as a form of betrayal. I do know that in some cultures, people have a different understanding of time. So I'm not too sure about that one, kind of not showing up on time. But I know for me, those of you that know me, I think the joke was that I prefer to be 1 hour early than 1 minute late. If a meeting, for example, if a meeting starts at 8 o'clock and you're still in the car park at 8 o'clock, you're late. So yeah, this whole thing about turning up on time, I'm not sure, but I know for me, if somebody keeps turning up late, it does kind of get to me, and I get kind of quite tense. The other thing that is a form of betrayal is not making your spouse a priority. That's really, really important, that the person you're with, your long-term partner, somebody who you're with, you don't make them a priority. And one of the things, of course, if you're in a relationship and this is not even, I'm not even talking about sexual stuff now. So somebody said that finds lateness rude. Yeah, lots of people do actually find late. And I think just to go back for a moment, when my daughters were growing up, I used to say to them, I said, listen, being on time is really important. If you are always on time and there's one of the occasions you turn up late, you have enough change in the bank and people see with you. But if you're always late, people don't take you seriously. And I must confess, one of my daughters was always late when she's growing up. But I tell you what, she's bang on time now, married and working and all the rest of it. So maybe all the hard work we gave her kind of did some good. So not making your spouse, your long-term partner, a priority, that's a form of betrayal, because you're in a relationship together and you're there for each other, and it's there about making each other a priority. That's really important. Also, another thing that's a form of betrayal, number 3, is not being there when your partner or your spouse or your partner is hurt or sick. You don't swan off. You don't leave them. Let me share something with you. This actually happened, so I'm not making this up. Many years ago, shan't name the city that it was in. A friend of mine, mother, discovered that she had, I think she had collapsed. And what had happened, she'd collapsed at the foot of the stairs. Her husband, really toxic relationship. Her husband was in the front room watching the TV, watching the horses. He wanted to use the bathroom, came out the bathroom, stepped over her as she collapsed at the bottom of the stairs, went up to use the bathroom, came back, stepped over her, and went back into the front room to watch the horse racing. It was only when her kids came in later on and saw that she'd collapsed and contacted the hospital, A&E, and she was diagnosed to be diabetic. So this whole thing about now that's kind of extreme, but sometimes people are just not there. They're just not around when their partner or their spouse is hurt or unwell. It's really, really important. Also, another thing is not contributing to the well-being of the family. I do want to link this into the previous one. My father died as a young man, 52 years old. And I remembered literally 3 or 4 days before he died, I was at the hospital with him. Around about that time, he was still lucid at the time. And my mum and sister went to the loo. And when they'd gone, closed the door, my dad said, well, I shan't say it in Jamaican patois, Delroy, how's your mum? How's she coping with this? Is she all right? Now, my dad was dying, but he was still concerned about his wife. He was concerned about the family. And I was sharing with somebody recently that my dad never ever sat me down and told me how to look after the family, but I saw what he did. And that observation really helped me to shape me to ensure that I looked after my family. There's some of the things that I've done, well, in fact, my wife and I have done for our daughters. They don't even know to this day what we've done. So there's something really important about looking after, making a contribution to the well-being of the family. And if you don't do that, that is a form of betrayal. So it's not just sexual infidelity, but that is also a form of betrayal. So good evening, Paulette. We're not seeing you for a little while, but thank you for being here this evening. Another thing about betrayal, or one of the things, is not keeping promises. Now, I just want to say this, that a one-off act of betrayal, however you want to understand it, will not lead to a breakdown in a relationship. It won't. Not one. If talking about sexual infidelity, possibly, but the things I'm talking about, possibly not one. But the danger, of course, is I call it the Jenga syndrome. Oh, good evening, Doc. Now, this is my friend from Iraq. She doesn't live there, but she's working in Iraq at the moment. So thank you very, very much indeed. See me this evening, Nana. And also Carol on YouTube. Thank you very much indeed. So not keeping promises, and also this whole thing about An act of betrayal, however we understand it, and I'm putting the sexual infidelity to one side. One-off is not bad, and it won't end the relationship. But if we continue to keep doing it, I call, oops, I'm not too sure what's happened here. Here we go. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened there. Yeah, so if we keep doing these acts of betrayal, it chips away at the self. I call it the Jenga syndrome. Those of you that know the game Jenga, where there's wooden blocks, and the idea is to take a block out and put it on the top without the whole kind of tower collapsing. And what happens if your personhood, your humanity is being chipped away continuously, there comes a point where everything collapses. So this whole thing about betrayal doesn't have to be an overnight thing, but just consistently chipping away at the person's sense of self can cause a person to break down and collapse. So not keeping promises is one. The other thing, of course, is keeping secrets. There are some people I know that are incredibly private, but keeping secrets is something else, and it's damaging and destructive. Now, here's a question. Here we go. Thank you, sound engineer. Question. My personal thought about betrayal is that someone has knowingly used a form of deception to gain something at the disadvantage of another person or people. Do you think that sometimes people are accused of betrayal when they had no idea what was expected of them, or they were expected to always support someone even when they are wrong? That's a very, very good question, actually. Let me go through that again. Personal thought about betrayal is that someone has knowingly used a form of deception, to gain something at the disadvantage of another person or people. Do you think that sometimes people are accused of betrayal when they had no idea what was expected of them? Possibly so, or were they expected to always support someone even when... that's a very good question. That is a very good question. It's interesting because it depends on the context. I think the first part is absolutely correct. I think sometimes people can be accused when they weren't told what was expected of them. I think that's true. I think certainly betrayal is a form of deception. Sometimes we know what we're doing, but we're kind of setting somebody up. Or were they expected to always support someone even? Well, it's interesting. The reason why I say context is to do with, I was in Wales for some time, and the guy I stayed at the house with, he told me about a counsellor who was a recovering alcoholic, really, really good counsellor. And what she said to families, if you've got somebody who's alcoholic, don't give them money. Do not support them because you're fueling the addiction. What you need to do, you draw a line in the sand and you don't support them. Not until they get to the place where they recognize what's going on and there's no support, then in a sense they can be kind of shunted off, to get the help that they need. So I think you've raised an interesting point there. Yes, and I think it depends. It's interesting how I'm thinking now that you can be accused of betrayal when in fact you've not betrayed that person at all. You've actually stood up against them, and you're not going to fuel or support what they're doing. But they can be used in manipulation. And quite often people who are very good at that are people who suffer with addiction. They can be incredibly good at manipulating the situation and making you out as the victim, the baddie, and all that type of thing. I'm talking with somebody some time ago, quite some time ago now, and told me about a brother of his who said he had a child, and then the child had died, trying to get sympathy from the family. This person's got a major gambling problem, trying to get sympathy from the family. And I asked the question, does the family know the existence of this child? Nobody knows. It was in a different country and all the rest of it. So using manipulation to get what they want can be a form of betrayal, also active manipulation as well. So thank you for that question. That's really helpful. Good evening, Jerry, and anyone else. If you're watching, if you come on late and you don't normally comment, really good to see you this evening. And if you're watching this later online, anyone at FCFC who might be watching this evening, thank you very much for taking the time to do so. Okay, so another form of betrayal is lying. That's kind of obvious, isn't it, really? Where somebody's put your trust in you and you're lying. And certainly in a close relationship, an intimate relationship, lying is devastating. When I was younger, I was a little bit of a bugger for lying. And my dad said to me one day, he said, look, Delroy, if you're going to lie, make sure you got a good memory. And I've never forgotten that. And he never had to explain it. He never had to explain it at all. If you're going to lie, make sure you've got a good memory. So now you tell the truth and there's nothing to remember because you're telling the truth. You saw what you saw. So another form of betrayal, and this is, I must confess, this is something I really dislike: putting somebody down, or putting your partner or your wife, your spouse, putting them down in public or even in private. I spoke to somebody recently. She told me how her partner insulted her. That is a form of betrayal. And one of the things I do know, that now I'll say this: the world isn't perfect. The person you're with is not perfect. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. And so in relationships, there will be difficulties that will take place. There's a I guess they've got English sayings as well, but there's a Caribbean saying about marriages: tongue and teeth will meet. Meaning that in those type of close relationships, there's always going to be tension and some conflict, but not to the point whereby you're insulting somebody, putting them down. You can disagree, you can have arguments, but it doesn't have to end up you're the other person being insulted, you're being rude to them, you're belittling them, patronizing them. That is not helpful, and it doesn't help for the relationship to grow. So, and certainly another form of betrayal is committing emotional or physical infidelity. This whole thing around, you might be with somebody, which is very common. We might be with somebody, but you're making a beeline for somebody else. You might meet up for coffee with them, and that's the kind of secret. You go to places where nobody knows where you are. That's the kind of betrayal. That is a form of betrayal as well. And another one, of course, is being physically aggressive. That's another form of betrayal. In fact, it's not just that. If you're with somebody and you repeatedly make the attempt to hit them and you never do hit them, psychologically and emotionally, that causes a lot of difficulties. That's a form of betrayal, form of abuse, where you're really wearing away, again, chipping away at the person's sense of self. I'd like to add another couple. This is not part of the article. I want to add another couple. Part of betrayal, I said I was going to put sexual infidelity to one side, and I have, but also withdrawal from sexual interest. That can be another form of betrayal. I recall somebody, the couple were going through some difficulties, and he said he would not give her another child. So he refused to sleep with her because she wanted another child. There's relationships, there were difficulties in relationships, and he said he would not give her another child. So that can be a form of betrayal as well. When in fact there's a close relationship, there's things that have been shared, and you withdraw sexual intimacy. That is also a form of betrayal. Good evening, Jeff. I bet you didn't know that, did you? Withdrawal from sexual interest, and it's not just the woman. Sometimes it's the man that does it. Sometimes the women get a lot of blame, and there's sometimes good reason why a woman does withdraw sexual favors or closeness. There's many reasons why, but sometimes men can do it as an act of revenge or to spite the person that they're with. The last one I perhaps want to consider, and it might be of surprise to some of us, there's also financial infidelity, which is a form of betrayal. I've heard it repeatedly, where in couples counseling, where somebody will take out a loan without telling their partner or their spouse, or somebody runs up a debt and they don't tell the person they're with that they're in a debt. That's also a form of betrayal. So it's amazing. You would have thought if somebody wants to take out the loan, somebody I met quite some time ago said that her partner took out a loan. To this day, she doesn't know what the loan was for. A significant amount of money, and still doesn't know what the money was for. All those things, that's called financial infidelity. All those things can be a form of betrayal, which violates the trust that the person has invested in you. And those of us whose trust has been knocked, we know how difficult it is for trust to be regained. So these are just some thoughts around forms of betrayal. So I put this sexual infidelity to one side because that's mainly what's in people's minds. But this whole thing about not turning up on time, not making your spouse or your partner priority, no commitment to the family, that's an act of betrayal. That's right, yeah, not committed to the family, breaking promises, keeping secrets, that things are happening in your life and you don't tell the person that you're with. And it's not because you're private or you're really embarrassed to tell them, but you just keep loads of secrets, and that is not good for a relationship. The person you're with suspect that something's going on, and then what happens when you're not at home? They can be snooping around your clothes to see if there's any notes in your pockets, and trying to get online and check your emails if you've been contacting somebody secretly. All these things, lying, putting down your partner in public or even in private, insulting, belittling, patronizing partner, all those things are a form of betrayal. And over a period of time, it chips away at the personhood of the person that you're with. And in fact, what can happen, and I'll end with this, the person you're attracted to, the woman could be incredibly feminine and elegant, but you chip away at her that much, she loses all that. And the guy that was masculine and strong, he's chipped away so much, he loses that. I think I said last time, he becomes almost, now this is perhaps not very PC, he almost becomes a wuss. The very thing that you was really attracted to, that you've kind of been at him so much that he loses all that masculinity, that solidity that he had, he loses it because he's been got at so much. So the world's not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But there's ways in which we can air our disagreements. We can disagree with individuals. We can have an opposing point of view without being rude, patronizing, belittling, or condescending to each other. So there are some of the forms of betrayal. If there's no other thoughts, I just want to check, Jenny, that I answered your question correctly. So there's no other thoughts. You can watch it again, of course, with pen and paper. Always think it's good to write down some stuff. You can't write down everything, but if there's one thing that really stands out, that's really important. Kind of make a note of it and see if you can put it into operation. Right, good. A wuss. Yeah, I think that's how it's spelled. Yes. Yeah, so that's it. So there's nothing else. Thank you very much indeed. Really good to see everybody this evening, and certainly good to see you, Karen, on YouTube. Wishing you well. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the week, and I'll see you again next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Continuing with this thing about betrayal. And again, please feel to contact me or DM me during the week if you want to ask a particular question about this or something else, and I'll certainly include it in the work that I'm doing online here on Tuesday evenings. Wishing you well. Go well, take care, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Ooh. Thanks, Paula and Jenny. Thank you, David. Yep, cheers. Take care, everybody. All the best. Thank you, Jerry. Cheers. And those of you that have watched silently, thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen in. Hope you got something useful as well. Take care. Wish you well. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.